The Cold War, an epic of ideological conflict in the modern era, a clash of titans and a world suspended by a thread. Over 45 years, the Earth was kept at a manageable temperature by a combination of skillful diplomacy and espionage. But while the global superpowers counted their bombs, some areas were well beyond lukewarm. Our story today is one of a minute conflict, a microcosm of the Cold War as a whole within a very small nation on the border of Bolivia. Brewsteria, South America. This small nation had existed in the Andes mountain range since it gained its independence from Spain in 1822. Located in the middle of the treacherous mountain range, Brewsteria remained isolated from neighboring Argentina and Bolivia. Terrain that was nearly impossible to navigate by foot caused the first settlers to use waterways and canals to travel their small territory. An abundance of natural metals allowed the nation to see a period of industrialization in the early 19th century. A small railroad was built along with a navy to protect the river convoys from bandits and footpads of the mountains.
While other Latin American nations went through periods of turmoil, Brewsteria was able to establish towns and ports along the rivers of the Central Andes. The country was essentially organized under a collection of tiny trade routes, but by the mid-20th century its old parliamentary monarchy started to deteriorate. Decades of corruption, high taxes, and constant modification of the nation's constitution led to unrest among the populace. The government saw countless assassination attempts and failed coups as the people began to demand reform.
The old parliament was failing to stay afloat, and it seemed as if the whole government would collapse. Protesters were put down by royalist troops, and resentment among much of the populace had reached a breaking point. The situation was particularly bad in the north, as most of the royalist military was moved south to maintain order in territories closer to the southern capital of San Melcriado. Then, in 1976, the old king of Brewsteria, King Alfonso, suffered a stroke and died without an heir. With the king dead, a small fringe rebel group of communists began to grow in numbers amidst the turmoil. The goal of the rebels was to establish a communist republic in place of the old kingdom. They hoped that the rotting government would not be able to prevent such an uprising and that the resistance would be little. Little did they know that this conflict would be far more devastating than they could ever have predicted. In a desperate last attempt to prevent war to save the existing government, the royal court advisors found two men who could possibly inherit the throne. The king had two nephews, Archduke Rafael Despacito and Archduke Nadachad of Sidentina. Each nephew was equally legitimate and each held a claim to the throne. An election was held in the hopes that this would satisfy the people. Nadachad won the election but died of mysterious causes. And thus, King Rafael Despacito came to power and began a period of order, modernization, and industrial growth. Despacito earned the adoration of the southern people, but the peasants of the north still felt neglected by the government and would not readily forget how they had been neglected. Paso de los Muertos, November 18, 1978. A supply ship carrying luxury goods for the court is bound for San Malcriado. Word spread that even with clear signs of an imminent communist uprising, the royal court was spending the majority of tax money on maintaining their lavish lifestyles. Under the command of an unknown farmer, the rebels launched their first attack. After a short fight, the crews of the supply ship as well as its escorts are killed. King Despacito, realizing that the entire north was now aligned with the rebels, declared war on the People's Republic of Brewsteria the following day. Despacito immediately met with his generals to decide on a battle plan that would destroy the rebellion.
General, what's the situation?
It's been 6 hours and the rebels have already taken over Sidentina.
We need a plan. Decide a plan.
You didn't even know what you're doing.
Neither do you.
What is that? You can't go from that
Is
side.
an arrow or a line?
You don't know what you're doing. Why are you even here? What are you doing? That is trash.
Get out of here. I'm sick of you. Go.
While the leadership of the southern government was being reorganized, the Republic was able to make staggering progress. Royalist aircraft stalked rebel troops and tried to break supply lines, but no progress was made. No one in the southern government knew who their brilliant and cunning leader was, until a royalist spy active in the communist capital revealed the leader's identity, Andre Di Fabuloso, a poor farmer turned tactical genius after famine had killed his family. He vowed to destroy the royalist bourgeoisie.
The rebel supply line that ran through Bolivia was cut off after Bolivia issued an ultimatum, stating that if troops of the Brewsterian People's Republic did not withdraw immediately, Bolivia would enter the conflict. The Republic was now without a supply line, and to make matters worse, the United States announced that it would be aiding the regime in suppressing the rebels.
As the U.S. ambassador, I would like to formally address the people of Brewsteria, assuring them that within a few days, the United States military will be deploying on their soil in an attempt to combat the socialist menace.
It seemed as if the Republic would be crushed as quickly as it had grown, until the communist forces captured a southern spy.
Are you ready to talk now?
Yes.
Are the Americans sending troops?
No troops.
And so, it was revealed that the American aid was largely a bluff, and that the US was unwilling to intervene in such a small conflict.
That is why we have cast away the bridle of our tyrant, in a show of firm defiance to their coercion. The moment that supply ship sank marks the moment of your liberation. Only time will tell if that freedom will be short-lived, brothers. If it is our conviction to die free men, only a show of strength will suffice. Burn whatever papers the old regime has given you, for they are the shackles by which the capitalists confine you. From here on out, my brothers, all you will need is a gun and ammunition.
Di Fabuloso now knew he could counterattack without consequence. He would devise a plan to seize the southern industrial center of Despotosi to supply his army. To command his growing forces, Andres Di Fabuloso required another general, another competent leader capable of understanding his plans. A request was sent to the Soviet Union to send a general that would aid them in their efforts. Surprisingly enough, a general was sent over immediately. And so, Di Fabuloso was able to garrison his new territory while his plans to take Despotosi were executed by the general.
Товарищи, пришло время для битвы. Для меня большая честь привести вас сегодня. Я вижу только бесстрашные люди, огнем в глазах, решивших закончить репрессивный режим. Именно с той же режим, который я буду использовать, чтобы привести вас сегодня. Варя, идем.
The attack is swift and efficient due to the new commanding style the general brings. Despotosi is taken for the communists, but they crave for more. They continue to push by launching attacks on trading posts along their border. Their target now? A major port east of the capital. With rebels approaching the royal capital of San Malcriado, King Despacito was prepared to launch an all-out offensive. He had one last attempt at putting down the revolution before time ran out. Old cruisers and river monitors were refitted for the naval invasion of Port Viejo. Despacito wanted to wipe out the communists in one final mass attack. A patrol plane that had been captured by the rebels had spotted the advancing fleet, but was shot down by Despacito's flagship. And it just happened that Andres de Fabuloso, the general, and a small garrison division were staying behind in the capital as their forces closed in on San Macriado.
What game do you think we're playing? What? Okay. There.
Что ты делаешь?
I thought we were playing poker.
Ты что,
What the hell
дурак?
are
Ты
you
что,
doing?
дурак? О, сволочь! О, ну
Jesus Christ! General!
Fabulous.
Are you okay?
Побеждай для меня. Побеждай во всех.
So, with its population devastated and its land scarred indefinitely, the country of Brewsteria, along with its proud history, came to an end. Within a few days, hordes of scavengers would flock to the ruins of Brewsteria, hoping to salvage what little riches remained in the shipwreck of a country. It was at this time that Bolivia offered to occupy the region in an effort to quell the ravenous crime that had erupted. It was at this time that Bolivia offered to occupy the region in an effort to quell the ravenous crime which had erupted, and in amidst the chaos, former Brewster was christened with a new name, as the town of Brewster. Today, the Brewsterian Civil War is largely forgotten to historians, relegated to little more than a footnote in modern textbooks. But it is vital that we understand the nature of this conflict as an exercise in ideological struggle, a rare moment in which desperate worlds grappled with each other for survival, demonstrating that in a war between communism and democracy, the winners are those who make their flight while the opportunity is still there.
I think if there's one thing modern leaders need to take from this story, it's that you can never lose sight of your intentions. No matter which side you think was right, neither of them ever took a step back to see just what was happening to their country. The outside powers certainly didn't care. They were motivated by missiles. When the only possible outcome for your nation is ruin, ideology shouldn't be your concern.
In conclusion, the Brewsterian Civil War exemplifies the idea of a bad place.
One, go.